Beyond the boundaries of the known galaxy, in the dark and uncharted reaches of space, a small alien race known as the Zillans struggled to survive. For centuries, they had been shunned and ostracized by the advanced civilizations that dominated the galactic landscape, their perceived weakness making them outcasts in the eyes of their more powerful neighbors. The Zillans were a peaceful, unassuming species, their physiology vastly different from the towering, technologically superior races that lorded over the galaxy. Standing barely taller than a human child, with delicate, translucent skin and large, expressive eyes, the Zillans possessed a unique set of abilities that their counterparts deemed inconsequential. While other alien races boasted of their military might and expansionist ambitions, the Zillans preferred to live in harmony with the natural rhythms of the cosmos. They had a deep, almost spiritual connection to the ebb and flow of the galaxy, their heightened senses allowing them to read the flow of cosmic energy and navigate the stars with unparalleled precision. But in a universe dominated by the strong, the Zillans' gentle ways were seen as a weakness to be exploited. Powerful civilizations would often encroach upon the Zillans' territories, pillaging their resources and forcing them to flee to even more remote corners of the galaxy. For generations, the Zillans had been on the run, their once thriving colonies reduced to scattered enclaves, struggling to eke out an existence on the fringes of galactic society. They had learned to be wary of outsiders, their trust in others eroding with each encounter that left them feeling violated and betrayed. Yet, the Zillans never lost hope. They clung to the belief that somewhere out there, beyond the reach of the oppressive forces that hounded them, they would find a safe haven where they could live in peace and rebuild their shattered lives. One such glimmer of hope came in the form of a young Zillan named Ira, whose keen senses had detected a distant signal, a faint whisper in the cosmic symphony that spoke of a world unlike any the Zillans had encountered before. Ira presented her findings to the elders of her enclave, her eyes shining with a newfound determination. "This signal," she said, her voice trembling with a mixture of excitement and trepidation, "it comes from a world unlike any we have seen. The energy signatures are unlike those of the civilizations we have encountered, and the planetary conditions seem to be ideal for our kind." The elders listened intently, their wrinkled faces etched with a mixture of hope and caution. They had been down this path before, only to have their dreams of sanctuary crushed by the relentless pursuit of their oppressors. "And what of the inhabitants of this world?" asked one of the elders, his brow furrowed with concern. "Have you any knowledge of the beings who dwell there?" Ira hesitated for a moment, her gaze shifting downward. "The signal is weak, and the information I've gathered is limited," she admitted. "But from what I can discern, these beings appear to be unlike any we have encountered. They seem different, less advanced, perhaps, but also more accepting." The elders exchanged a series of silent glances, their antennae twitching as they communicated through a complex web of subtle gestures. Finally, the eldest among them, a wise and weathered Zillan named Trellin, raised his hand, silencing the murmurs that had begun to ripple through the gathered crowd. "Then it is settled," he declared, his voice firm and resolute. "We shall dispatch a scout team to this distant world to assess the viability of this potential sanctuary. If what Ira has detected is true, then perhaps at last we have found the safe haven we have sought for so long." The Zillans erupted in a cacophony of excited chitters and trills, their delicate features alight with a glimmer of hope that had been all but extinguished in the darkest hours of their long and arduous exile. As the scout team prepared for their perilous journey, the rest of the enclave began the arduous task of packing their meager belongings, ready to follow in the footsteps of their brave comrades, should the news from the distant world prove promising. For the Zillans, this was more than just a search for a new home. It was a desperate gamble for survival, a final chance to escape the relentless persecution that had haunted them for generations. And as their small ships lifted off into the vast expanse of the galaxy, the Zillans could only pray that this time, their quest for safety would not end in further heartbreak and despair. The small scout ships of the Zillan expedition, sliced through the inky blackness of space, their pilots guiding them with a combination of intuition and sophisticated navigational systems. After weeks of travel, they finally reached the coordinates Era had provided, their sensors sweeping the unfamiliar sector of the galaxy. To their surprise, the signal they had detected emanated not from a desolate planet, but from a thriving human colony, its surface dotted with modest settlements and bustling hubs of activity. The Zillans had encountered humans before, but only in passing, and never had they dared to approach their worlds, fearing the same hostility and persecution they had experienced at the hands of other alien races. Yet, as the scout ships hovered cautiously above the colony, the Zillans could not help but feel a glimmer of hope. The human settlements seemed peaceful, their inhabitants going about their daily lives without the constant threat of attack or subjugation that had become the Zillans' unwelcome reality. Yera, the young Zillan whose keen senses had led them to this place, turned to the other members of the scout team, her large, expressive eyes filled with a mixture of trepidation and determination. "We must make contact," she said, her melodic voice barely above a whisper. "If these humans are as different as the readings suggest, then perhaps they will be willing to offer us the sanctuary we so desperately seek." The other Zillans exchanged hesitant glances, their antennae twitching with a mixture of excitement and unease. They had witnessed the consequences of trusting outsiders all too often, and the thought of placing their hopes in the hands of these unfamiliar beings filled them with a sense of dread. "It is a risk we must take," Trellin, the elder who had championed the expedition, spoke up, his weathered features set with a resolute expression. "We have come too far to turn back now. If these humans prove to be as different as Era believes, then perhaps they may be the key to our salvation." With a collective nod, the Zillan scout team prepared to make first contact, their small ships descending towards the largest human settlement, their pilots sending out a series of coded signals in the hopes of reaching the curious inhabitants below. As the Zillan ships drew closer, the human colonists on the ground watched with a mixture of awe and trepidation. They had never encountered such strange and unfamiliar vessels, and the sight of the delicate, otherworldly craft sent ripples of excitement and unease through the community. It was Elijah, a young and inquisitive human farmer, who first spotted the approaching ships and alerted the rest of the colony. Grabbing his binoculars, he peered up at the sky, his brow furrowed with a curious fascination. "What in the world?" he muttered, his voice barely audible over the soft hum of the Zillan ships as they hovered above the settlement. Elijah's call drew the attention of the other colonists, and soon a small crowd had gathered. All eyes turned skyward, their expressions a mix of wonder and apprehension. Some reached for makeshift weapons, while others stood transfixed, captivated by the sight of the alien craft. It was in this tense moment that the Zillan ships made their move, their pilots sending out a series of gentle, melodic signals, a universal language of peace and goodwill. The colonists, taken aback by the unexpected gesture, hesitated, their fingers lingering on the triggers of their weapons. Sensing the humans' unease, the Zillan ships remained in place, their pilots conveying a message of non-aggression and a plea for understanding. For long, agonizing moments, the two groups stared at one another, the air thick with a palpable tension as they tried to decipher the intentions of this fateful encounter. Finally, it was Elijah who made the first move, stepping forward with his hands raised in a gesture of peace. The other colonists watched with bated breath as the young farmer approached the Zillan ships, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and curiosity. "We mean you no harm," Elijah called out, his voice trembling slightly. "Please, tell us who you are and why you have come to our world." The Zillan pilots exchanged a series of rapid, hushed communications, their antennae twitching with uncertainty. This was the moment they had been both dreading and yearning for, a chance to make contact with a new species, to plead for the sanctuary they so desperately needed. And as they prepared to respond, the weight of their people's future rested squarely on their shoulders. The Zillan ships hovered silently above the human colony, their pilots engaged in a tense, unspoken dialogue with the curious and apprehensive colonists below. Elijah, the young farmer who had dared to approach the alien craft, stood before them, his hands raised in a gesture of peace, his eyes reflecting a mixture of fear and fascination. The Zillan elders, observing the scene from the safety of their ships, debated their next course of action. They had come to this world in search of sanctuary, a desperate gamble for survival in the face of relentless persecution by the more powerful civilizations of the galaxy. But now, as they confronted the wary and skeptical gaze of the human colonists, they found themselves grappling with a new set of uncertainties. They do not seem hostile. Yera, the young Zillan who had detected the signal from this distant world, said softly, her delicate features etched with a hint of hope. Perhaps we have found the refuge we have sought for so long. Trellin, the weathered elder who had championed the expedition, nodded slowly, his antennae twitching with contemplation. It is a possibility, he conceded, but we must tread carefully. These humans may be different, but they are still strangers, and their response to our presence is far from certain. As the Zillan ships remained suspended in the air, the tension on the ground palpable, the human colonists began to gather in hushed, frantic discussions. Elijah, still standing at the forefront, turned to face his fellow settlers, his expression a mix of wonder and trepidation. These beings, he said, his voice carrying a note of awe, they are unlike anything we have ever encountered. They seem peaceful, almost fragile, and yet there is a sense of urgency about them, as if they are fleeing from some unseen danger. The other colonists murmured in agreement, their eyes darting warily towards the looming alien ships. Some voiced concerns about the potential threat these visitors might pose, while others, like Elijah, were intrigued by the prospect of making first contact with an extraterrestrial race. It was then that a figure emerged from the crowd, a woman with a commanding presence and a keen analytical gaze. This was Samantha, the de facto leader of the colony, a pragmatic and resourceful individual who had guided her people through many challenges. "We cannot afford to be reckless," Samantha said, her voice cutting through the cacophony of voices. "These aliens may be different, but that does not mean they are harmless. We must proceed with caution and determine their true intentions before we make any decisions." Elijah opened his mouth to protest, but Samantha raised a hand, silencing him. "I understand your curiosity, Elijah, but we have a responsibility to protect our colony and its people. We cannot afford to take unnecessary risks, no matter how intriguing these visitors may be." The other colonists murmured in agreement, their expressions torn between apprehension and a glimmer of intrigue. Samantha turned her gaze skyward, her brow furrowed in deep thought. "If these aliens truly seek refuge," she continued, "then perhaps we can offer them a chance to prove their peaceful intentions. But they must understand that we will not tolerate any threats to our way of life." With a decisive nod, Samantha stepped forward, her hands raised in a gesture of openness. "Visitors from the stars," she called out, her voice carrying a mix of authority and cautious curiosity. "We welcome you to our world, but we must know your purpose and your needs before we can offer you our trust." The Zillan pilots, having observed the exchange with rapt attention, exchanged a series of hushed communications. Yera, her eyes shining with a tentative hope, turned to Trellin, silently pleading for his guidance. "We have come in search of sanctuary." Trellin's voice resonated through the communication systems of the Zillan ships, his words laced with a sense of desperation. "Our people have been shunned and persecuted by the advanced civilizations of the galaxy, and we now find ourselves on the brink of extinction. If you would have us, we would humbly request the opportunity to live among you, to contribute to your society, and to find the peace we have so long been denied." The human colonists fell silent, their expressions a mix of surprise, skepticism, and a glimmer of empathy. Samantha's gaze narrowed, her mind already weighing the risks and potential benefits of this unexpected alliance. It was a decision that would not only shape the future of her own colony, but also the fate of an entire alien race seeking refuge in a hostile galaxy. The Zillan ships remained hovering above the human colony, the tension palpable as the colonists debated the fate of their unexpected visitors. Samantha, the colony's de facto leader, stood with a pensive expression, her gaze fixed on the delicate alien craft. "If what you say is true," she called out, her voice firm yet tinged with a hint of uncertainty, "then perhaps we can offer you the sanctuary you seek. But you must understand that we cannot simply trust your words. We need to know that your presence here will not endanger our way of life." Trellin, the Zillan elder, nodded solemnly, his antennae twitching with a mixture of hope and trepidation. "We understand your caution, and we would never wish to impose ourselves upon your people. All we ask is the opportunity to prove our worth, to demonstrate that we can be valuable members of your community." Samantha considered the Zillan's words, her brow furrowed in deep contemplation. Elijah, the young farmer who had first approached the alien ships, stepped forward, his expression filled with a curious fascination. "Perhaps we could start by learning more about your people," he suggested, his voice tinged with a hint of excitement. "What unique abilities or knowledge do you possess that could be of benefit to our colony?" The Zillan pilots exchanged a series of rapid, hushed communications, their eyes darting between Samantha and Elijah. Finally, Yera, the young Zillan who had discovered this distant world, stepped forward, her delicate features alight with a sense of purpose. "We possess a deep, intuitive understanding of the cosmic energies that govern the galaxy," she said, her melodic voice carrying a note of reverence. "Our senses are attuned to the ebb and flow of these unseen forces, allowing us to navigate the stars with unparalleled precision and to read the subtle patterns of the universe." Elijah's eyes widened with wonder, his gaze shifting from Ayeret to Samantha, who listened intently, her expression softening ever so slightly. "And what of your technology?" Samantha asked, her tone pragmatic. "Surely a people capable of traversing the stars must possess advanced knowledge and capabilities that could benefit our colony." Ira nodded, her large, expressive eyes shining with a glimmer of pride. "While our technological prowess may not match that of the dominant civilizations, we have developed a unique understanding of the natural world and the subtle energies that sustain it. Our medical knowledge, for example, allows us to harness the healing properties of the very elements that comprise our universe." As Ira spoke, the Zillan pilots activated a series of holographic displays, projecting intricate images and diagrams that illustrated the depth of their knowledge. The human colonists, both fascinated and skeptical, gathered around the alien ships, their expressions shifting from guarded suspicion to cautious intrigue. Samantha, her gaze sweeping over the mesmerizing holograms, felt a twinge of reluctant admiration. "These abilities," she murmured, "could indeed prove invaluable to our colony. Perhaps there is a way for us to coexist, to forge a mutually beneficial alliance." Elijah, his eyes shining with excitement, turned to Samantha, his voice brimming with enthusiasm. "Just think of what we could learn from them, Samantha. Their knowledge of the cosmos, their advanced medical techniques, they could help us thrive in ways we never imagined." Samantha held up a hand, silencing Elijah's impassioned pleas. "I understand your eagerness, Elijah, but we must proceed with caution. These aliens may be different, but they are still strangers, and we cannot afford to let our guard down, not when the safety of our colony is at stake." Turning her gaze back to the Zillan ships, Samantha's expression hardened with determination. "If you truly wish to earn our trust and find a home among us, then you must be willing to prove your worth. Share your knowledge, lend your skills, and demonstrate that your presence here will not jeopardize all that we have built." Trellin, the Zillan elder, inclined his head in a gesture of respect. "We understand, and we accept your challenge. From this day forward, the Zillans will strive to become valuable members of your community, to contribute to your prosperity, and to earn the trust that has been so cruelly denied to us in the past." As the Zillan ships descended to the ground, the human colonists watched with a mix of caution and cautious optimism, their hearts and minds filled with the promise of a newfound alliance, one that could either secure their future or lead them down a perilous path. In the days that followed, the Zillans and the human colonists worked tirelessly to forge a delicate alliance, each side wary of the other's true intentions, but also driven by a shared desire for mutual understanding and prosperity. Under the watchful eye of Samantha, the colony's pragmatic leader, the Zillans shared their knowledge and unique abilities with the humans, demonstrating the depth of their understanding of the natural world and the intricate cosmic energies that govern the galaxy. Elijah, the young farmer whose curiosity had first sparked the fateful encounter, became a bridge between the two cultures, eagerly absorbing the Zillans' lessons and helping to translate their complex knowledge into practical applications that could benefit the colony. Together, they developed innovative medical treatments, harnessing the Zillans' advanced understanding of the healing properties of elemental energies. They also explored new avenues of exploration, using the Zillans' exceptional navigational skills to chart previously undiscovered sectors of the galaxy, uncovering valuable resources and potential new settlement sites. As the days turned into weeks, the initial caution and mistrust between the two groups slowly gave way to a genuine sense of respect and appreciation. The humans marveled at the Zillans' gentle, unassuming nature, while the Zillans found themselves captivated by the resilience and ingenuity of their human hosts. Yet, even as the alliance strengthened, a growing sense of unease began to permeate the colony. For the Zillans, the specter of their relentless persecution by the dominant alien civilizations loomed ever-present, a constant reminder of the fragility of their newfound sanctuary. Trellin, the elder Zillan who had championed the expedition to the human colony, could sense the shift in the cosmic energies, a foreboding ripple that foretold of impending danger. "They know," he said, his voice tinged with a mixture of dread and resignation, as he gathered the Zillan elders for a solemn council. "The other races, the ones who have hunted us for so long, they have discovered our presence here." Ira, her delicate features etched with worry, placed a reassuring hand on Trellin's arm. "Then we must warn the humans," she said, her melodic voice carrying a sense of urgency. "They have been kind to us, and they deserve to know the peril that may soon befall them." Trellin nodded solemnly, his antennae twitching with a mix of emotions. "Yes, we must," he agreed, "but how can we ask them to risk their safety, their very way of life, to protect us? We are but strangers in their midst, and they have already taken a great leap of faith in welcoming us." As the Zillan elders debated their course of action, the news of the impending threat slowly began to filter through the human colony. Samantha, her brow furrowed with a deep sense of concern, summoned Elijah and the other community leaders to an emergency meeting. "The Zillans have shared troubling news," she announced, her voice grave. "It seems that their presence here has not gone unnoticed by the other alien civilizations that have been persecuting them. They believe we may soon be the target of a dangerous incursion, one that could jeopardize the very foundations of our colony." The human colonists erupted into a cacophony of worried murmurs and panicked exclamations. Elijah, his expression a mix of fear and determination, stepped forward, his gaze unwavering. "Then we must prepare to defend our home," he declared, his voice carrying a newfound resolve. "The Zillans have proven themselves to be valuable allies, and if their enemies seek to destroy us, then we will stand with them, no matter the cost." Samantha raised a hand, silencing the growing clamor. "I understand your sentiment, Elijah, but we must consider the gravity of the situation. These alien civilizations are technologically superior, and their military might dwarf our own. Are we truly prepared to risk everything to protect the Zillans?" The human colonists fell silent, their expressions a mix of fear and uncertainty. Elijah opened his mouth to protest, but Samantha cut him off with a raised hand. "I do not make this decision lightly," she continued, her gaze sweeping over the assembled group. "But we have a responsibility to our people, to ensure their safety and well-being. We cannot afford to make rash decisions that could jeopardize our very existence. As the humans debated the merits of allying with the Zillans against the impending galactic threat, the Zillan elders watched from afar, their hearts heavy with the weight of the burden they had unwittingly placed upon their newfound friends. "We have brought this peril upon you," Trellin whispered, his voice laced with guilt and regret. "And now we can only pray that you will find the strength to stand with us, even in the face of such overwhelming odds." The human colony was ablaze with a frenetic energy as the news of the impending alien invasion spread through the settlement. Samantha, the pragmatic leader, had convened an emergency council, her gaze sweeping over the anxious faces of the colonists. "We must prepare for the worst," she announced, her voice grave. "The Zillans have informed us that the dominant alien civilizations have discovered their presence here, and they will stop at nothing to eliminate them, and any who dare to harbor them." Elijah, the young farmer whose curiosity had first welcomed the Zillans to the colony, stepped forward, his expression a mix of fear and determination. "Then we must fight," he declared, his voice unwavering. "We cannot simply abandon our new allies to the mercy of their persecutors." Samantha raised a hand, silencing the murmurs of agreement that rippled through the crowd. "I understand your desire to stand with the Zillans, Elijah, but we must be realistic. Our colony is not equipped to withstand the might of these advanced alien races. We simply do not have the resources or the firepower to mount a successful defense." The colonists fell silent, their faces etched with a mixture of despair and resignation. Trellin, the elder Zillan who had led his people to this distant world, approached Samantha, his delicate features reflecting a deep sense of sorrow. "We never meant to bring this peril upon you," he said, his melodic voice tinged with anguish. "If there was any other way, we would not have risked your safety. But alas, we have nowhere else to turn, and we can only humbly beg for your aid." Samantha's gaze softened, and she placed a reassuring hand on the Zillan's arm. "I know, Trellin," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "And I wish there was more we could do. But the simple truth is, we are outmatched, and the cost of defending you may be the destruction of everything we have built here." Trellin nodded slowly, his antennae twitching with resignation. "Then we shall face our fate with dignity," he said, his voice resolute. "If this is to be the end of the Zillans, then let it be on our own terms, fighting alongside the brave souls who have offered us sanctuary." As the Zillan elder returned to his people, Elijah approached Samantha, his eyes pleading. "There must be something we can do," he urged, his voice tinged with desperation. "We cannot simply abandon them to their doom." Samantha met his gaze, her expression etched with a deep sense of conflict. "I wish I could offer you more hope, Elijah," she said, her voice heavy with regret. "But the truth is, our only chance of survival may lie in doing the unthinkable, in abandoning the Zillans to their fate, and fleeing to safety ourselves." Elijah recoiled, his face contorted with a mixture of shock and outrage. "How can you even suggest such a thing?" he exclaimed, his voice rising with a newfound fervor. "These aliens have become our friends, our allies. We owe them our protection, our very lives." Samantha held up a hand, silencing his tirade. "I know, Elijah, I know," she said, her voice laced with a hint of resignation. "But if we stay and fight, we may all perish. And what good will that do for the Zillans, or for our own people?" The young farmer opened his mouth to protest, but the sound of a distant rumble cut him off. All eyes turned skyward as the first wave of alien ships descended upon the colony, their sleek, menacing forms casting ominous shadows over the settlement. Trellin and the Zillan elders rushed to the forefront, their delicate bodies radiating a pulsing energy that seemed to repel the incoming onslaught. The human colonists, their faces etched with a mixture of fear and determination, scrambled to activate the colony's meager defenses, their weapons and makeshift fortifications, paling in comparison to the might of their adversaries. As the battle raged on, the Zillans fought with a ferocity that belied their fragile appearance, their unique abilities proving to be a valuable asset in the desperate struggle. They seamlessly guided the humans, directing their fire and bolstering their defenses with their intricate understanding of the cosmic energies that coursed through the very fabric of the universe. But despite their valiant efforts, the overwhelming power of the alien invaders threatened to overwhelm the human-Xylan alliance. Samantha, her face etched with a growing sense of dread, turned to Elijah, her gaze resolute. "There may still be a chance for us to escape," she said, her voice barely audible over the din of the battle. "If we can hold out long enough, we may be able to evacuate the colony and find a new home, one where we can regroup and perhaps one day return to aid the Xylans." Elijah's eyes widened with a mixture of horror and reluctant acceptance. "But the Xylans," he stammered, his voice quivering with emotion. "We can't just leave them to die." Samantha placed a hand on his shoulder, her expression heavy with regret. "It's the only way, Elijah," she said, her words laced with a somber finality. "We must live to fight another day for the sake of our own people, and perhaps one day for the Xylans as well." As the battle raged on, the colonists faced an agonizing decision: to stand and fight, or to flee and live to fight another day, leaving their newfound Xylan allies to an uncertain fate. The evacuation of the human colony was a chaotic, gut-wrenching affair, as the beleaguered settlers watched in anguish as their Xylan allies fought a desperate, holding action against the relentless alien invaders. Samantha, the colony's pragmatic leader, had made the agonizing decision to flee, knowing that their only chance of survival lay in regrouping and returning another day to aid the Xylans. Elijah, his eyes brimming with tears, had protested vehemently, but even he had to acknowledge the stark reality they faced. Their meager defenses were no match for the overwhelming might of the advanced alien civilizations. As the human ships lifted off, the Xylans' delicate forms fading into the distance, Trellin, the elder who had led his people to this fateful encounter, turned to his fellow elders, his antennae twitching with a mixture of resignation and resolve. "They have not abandoned us," he said, his voice steady and unwavering. "They have chosen to live, to fight another day, so that they may one day return and aid us in our struggle." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the small band of Xylans who had survived the initial onslaught. "And we must do the same. We must endure, no matter the cost, for the sake of our people and the promise of a better future." The Xylans nodded in solemn agreement, their expressions etched with a determination that belied their fragile appearances. They knew that the battle ahead would be arduous, that the forces arrayed against them were vast and unforgiving, but they also knew that they had found, in these human strangers, an unlikely ally, one whose fate had become inextricably linked to their own. As the human ships fled into the vastness of space, Samantha and Elijah watched in anguish as the Xylan settlement was engulfed by the advancing alien armada. Elijah, his face turned away, wept openly, his heart torn by the knowledge that they had abandoned their newfound friends to an uncertain fate. Samantha placed a comforting hand on his shoulder, her own eyes glistening with unshed tears. "It was the only choice we had, Elijah," she said, her voice soft and weighted with regret. "We must live to fight another day, and perhaps, one day, we can return and aid the Xylans in their struggle." Elijah nodded, his expression a mix of sorrow and determination. "I know," he whispered, "and I pray that we will have the chance to do so. The Xylans fought bravely alongside us, and they deserve our loyalty and our aid." The human ships navigated the treacherous expanse of space, their occupants huddled together, their gazes fixed on the distant horizon. They had lost their home, their sanctuary, but they had also gained an unexpected ally, one whose fate had become inextricably linked to their own. As the days turned into weeks, the colonists began to settle into their new surroundings, a barren but resource-rich planet that had been hastily selected as a temporary refuge. Samantha, her brow furrowed with worry, oversaw the establishment of the new colony, her mind never far from the plight of the Xylans they had been forced to abandon. It was Elijah who first suggested that they send a scouting party to search for signs of the Xylan settlement, to see if any had survived the onslaught of the alien invaders. Samantha hesitated, her pragmatic nature warring with the growing sense of guilt and responsibility that had taken root in her heart. "We cannot afford to jeopardize the safety of our own people," she said, her voice tinged with regret. "The resources we need to rebuild our colony are scarce, and we cannot risk losing them in a futile search for our Xylan allies." Elijah's expression hardened, his eyes narrowing with determination. "But we cannot simply abandon them, Samantha," he argued, his voice rising with a newfound passion. "They trusted us, they fought alongside us, and we owe them our loyalty and our aid." Samantha held up a hand, silencing his protest. "I understand, Elijah, but we must be practical. The Xylans are a hardy people, and if any of them have survived, they will find a way to endure. Our focus must be on securing the future of our own colony, so that one day, when we are stronger, we can return and offer them the assistance they so desperately need." Elijah's shoulders slumped, his expression conflicted, but he knew that Samantha's words carried the weight of reason. Reluctantly, he nodded, his gaze drifting towards the distant horizon, where the faint glimmer of stars hinted at the plight of their Xylan allies. "We will return for them," he vowed, his voice barely above a whisper. "I swear it, on the very soil of this new home we now call our own." And as the human colonists set about the arduous task of rebuilding their lives, the hope of one day reuniting with their Xylan friends and allies burned brightly in their hearts, a beacon that would guide them through the challenges that lay ahead. Years passed as the human colony grew and flourished, its inhabitants driven by a renewed sense of purpose and a deep, unwavering determination to one day return and aid their Xylan allies. Guided by the knowledge and insights the Xylans had shared, the colonists made remarkable strides in adapting to their new home, harnessing the planet's abundant resources and developing innovative technologies that allowed them to thrive in the harsh, unforgiving environment. Elijah, now a respected member of the colony's leadership, spearheaded the efforts to explore the surrounding sectors of the galaxy, his team of intrepid explorers venturing forth in search of clues that might lead them back to the Xylan settlement they had been forced to abandon. Though their initial forays yielded little, the tenacious humans refused to be deterred, their resolve strengthened by the memory of their Xylan friends and the promise they had made to one day return and offer them aid. It was during one of these expeditions that Elijah's team made a remarkable discovery, a faint yet unmistakable signal emanating from a distant, uncharted region of space. Recognizing the peculiar energy signature, Elijah's eyes widened with a mix of hope and disbelief. "The Xylans," he breathed, his voice barely above a whisper. "They're alive, and they're out there somewhere." Wasting no time, Elijah rushed back to the colony, his report sparking a flurry of excitement and renewed determination among the colonists. Samantha, her once pragmatic demeanor softened by the passage of time, listened intently, her gaze alight with a newfound sense of purpose. "Then we must act," she declared, her voice carrying a note of authority that belied her years. "We've spent too long rebuilding, too long waiting. It's time we took the fight to our enemies and reclaimed what is rightfully ours, and the Xylans." Under Samantha's leadership, the colony launched a series of ambitious expeditions, their ships venturing deep into the unexplored reaches of the galaxy, following the faint trail of the Xylan signal. With the Xylans' exceptional navigational abilities and the colonists' growing technological prowess, they carved out a path through the vast, uncharted spaces, establishing new outposts and forging alliances with other, previously unknown alien civilizations. As they ventured further, the colonists encountered a surprising revelation. The Xylans' persecutors, the dominant alien races that had once sought to eradicate them, were now embroiled in a complex web of political and military turmoil. The Xylans' disappearance had created a power vacuum, and the various factions were locked in a bitter struggle for control of the galaxy. Seizing the opportunity, the Human-Xylan alliance began to maneuver through the shifting tides of the galactic landscape, leveraging their newfound technological and diplomatic advantages to establish a foothold in strategic sectors. Elijah, now a seasoned explorer and negotiator, became the face of the burgeoning alliance, his charisma and deep respect for the Zillans winning over skeptical alien civilizations. As the years passed, the human colony's reach expanded, its influence growing alongside its military and economic might. The once beleaguered settlers had become a formidable force in their own right, challenging the dominance of the traditional galactic powers and forging the new, more equitable order. And at the heart of this transformation lay the Zillans, their unique abilities and profound understanding of the cosmos proving invaluable in navigating the complexities of interstellar diplomacy and exploration. Trellin, the elder who had once led his people to the human colony, watched with a mix of pride and wonder as the alliance he had helped to forge blossomed into a powerful, respected force in the galaxy. "We have found our true home," he told his fellow Zillans, his eyes shining with a newfound sense of hope. "And together, we shall reshape the very fabric of the cosmos, ensuring that no one shall ever again suffer the fate that we once endured." As the human-Zillan alliance continued to grow and thrive, the once shunned and persecuted Xylan race became an integral part of the galactic community, their contributions and unique insights respected and celebrated by their newfound allies and former adversaries alike. In the annals of galactic history, the story of the Zillans and their unlikely alliance with the human colony would be remembered as a testament to the power of resilience, understanding, and the forging of unlikely bonds in the face of adversity. Once shunned and persecuted by the dominant alien civilizations, the Zillans had found an unexpected sanctuary in the distant human settlement, a place where their unique abilities and profound knowledge of the cosmos were not only respected but celebrated. Through the tireless efforts of Elijah, Samantha, and the other human colonists, the Zillans were able to not only secure their own future, but also reshape the very fabric of the galactic landscape. Together, they had navigated the treacherous political and military turmoil that had consumed the dominant races, leveraging their newfound power and influence to establish a more equitable and cooperative order. As the years passed, the human-Zillan alliance grew in strength and reputation, its reach extending to the farthest corners of the galaxy. The Zillans, once seen as weak and insignificant, became revered for their exceptional navigational skills, their deep understanding of the cosmic energies that govern the universe, and their unparalleled medical knowledge. Trellin, the elder Zillan who had led his people to the human colony, watched with a mix of pride and wonder as the alliance he had helped to forge blossomed into a force to be reckoned with. His people, once on the brink of extinction, had found not only a new home, but also a sense of purpose and belonging that had long eluded them. "We have come so far," Trellin would often tell his fellow Zillans, his melodic voice tinged with a hint of awe. From the shunned and persecuted outcasts of the galaxy to respected and integral members of a thriving interstellar community. This is a legacy that will echo through the ages, inspiring others who have faced similar adversity to never lose hope. And indeed, the story of the Zillans and their human allies did inspire countless other marginalized alien races to seek refuge and opportunities among the burgeoning human-led civilization. One by one, these groups were welcomed into the fold, their unique abilities and perspectives integrated into the fabric of the growing galactic empire. Elijah, now a seasoned explorer and diplomat, became a revered figure among both humans and aliens alike. His unwavering commitment to the Zillan cause and his tireless efforts to forge new alliances earning him the respect and admiration of his peers. "We owe so much to the Zillans," he would often say, his eyes shining with a mix of gratitude and determination. "They have taught us the true meaning of resilience, of overcoming adversity, and of the power of cooperation. Without them, we would never have become the force we are today." Samantha, the pragmatic leader who had once agonized over the decision to abandon the Zillans, had also come to embrace the alliance as the linchpin of the colony's success. In her later years, she would reflect on the fateful encounter that had forever changed the course of their destiny, her once stoic demeanor softened by a deep sense of appreciation and kinship. "The Zillans," she would say, her voice tinged with a hint of wistfulness, are not just our allies, but our family. Their resilience, their wisdom, and their unwavering spirit have inspired us to reach for greater heights, to build a future where no one is left behind. And so, as the Human-Zillan alliance continued to shape the course of galactic history, the legacy of the once shunned and persecuted Xylan race would echo through the ages, a testament to the power of hope, determination, and the transformative potential of unexpected alliances. In the distant reaches of the cosmos, where the stars shone with a renewed brilliance, the Xylans and their human companions would continue to forge a path that would inspire generations to come, a legacy that would forever change the face of the galaxy and the very nature of interstellar cooperation.